done like juvenile time or things like that. So, yeah, you don't get a chance to be a kid for one. You don't get a chance to be vulnerable and be able to show your emotions, express your emotions. I was telling somebody the other day, like, as I was growing up, when I became an adult, I had been by myself or sleeping by myself in prison for so long. When I came home and I started dealing with females, I had no emotions to that because I've never been able to grow until somebody that was around females that was able to be loved by a female or vice versa, give love. I was always around men. You have to be hard and you have to act a certain kind of way. So being so-called soft or vulnerable is what we're speaking on. It's impossible. I couldn't do it.
Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle, the empowering podcast challenging norms and guiding you to find strength and power through vulnerability. I'm your host, Reggie D. Ford. In a world that often portrays vulnerability as a sign of weakness, I believe it is a source of tremendous strength and authenticity. Through insightful conversations and thought provoking interviews, Vulnerability Muscle aims to redefine vulnerability and help listeners develop a new perspective on their own lives. Each episode of Vulnerability Muscle delves into a variety of topics such as mental health, social issues, and mindset shifts. We explore the power of vulnerability in healing, building resilience, and promoting personal growth, as well as fostering meaningful connections. This podcast provides practical tools and strategies to navigate life's challenges, overcome adversity, and create more inclusive and just environments for all people. Today, our guest is Ken G. Ken G is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, a coach who helps people reshape their thinking around life and finances, and a mentor to youth in the community and in juvenile detention centers. In this episode, we talk about how prison shaped Kenji's life, having been incarcerated as a minor for second-degree murder, and the challenges that brought about. This includes some helpful resources that Kenji provides us that he utilized to reinstate some of his rights, such as the right to vote, which I think extremely helpful. We discuss grief and loss of loved ones and the anger and resentment behind that. And he also gives a lot of insight into mindset shifts and how your thoughts can create and even change your reality, which he's seen in his own life, to see the growth and the prosperity that he's had to become the person that he is today. So with no further ado, let's embrace vulnerability with Ken G. Ken G, welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I got to start by saying this is for real deal, like one of the biggest honors for me to have you on this podcast, because for the longest I've looked up to you as a man, as a father, as a business person in so many ways. And so to have you be the first guest that we're recording, I don't know how to get released, but the first guest to record is like a huge honor for me. So thank you so much.
Man, I appreciate you having me, man. Just as much as you look up to me, I look up to you. Even though you're a lot younger than me, I'm just proud of who you are. Watch your growth. Watch you stay on course. So that means a lot for you to have me first.
Man, I appreciate that. So let me jump in because for the audience, this is my big cousin. Like I love this man to death, and he has a phenomenal story that I can't wait to get into. But can we rewind, because you were this mythical creature for me for a long time, right?
Right.
You so many people in the community, so many people in the family spoke so highly of you, and I think that's a testament to your character. But all those years, I didn't know who you were. So can you bring it back a little bit and tell us a little bit about who you were, who you are, from the origin story?
Okay. So from the start, man, like I grew up, with a big family. Of course, you know that. Um, My family was more or less like a real religious family. If you know, they just like really into religion. So that was kind of like my background growing up, but it never really like stuck me. Like I never really was there, like how they was. And so of course I went out and explored the world. I seen things that maybe I shouldn't have seen as a young child. but it enticed me to want to be a part of it. And I've seen a lot of that stuff at my grandmother's house, to be honest with you. You know, so that's how it kind of like started for me. Just like basically growing up in the church around a religious family, but also seeing things that you wouldn't want your children to really see at that age.
Can you elaborate? What are some of the things that you were seeing and experiencing, and about what age would you say you got into what you're experiencing?
Okay, so I could go from like seeing like drug dealing, pimping, alcoholic, drug abuse, um, beating of women, just like a lot of stuff that's just like weighed on me. So as I was getting older, to be honest, a lot of people always talk about the messages in the music, but the first
Mm-hmm.
time I heard NWA, I probably was like 11 years old, and I from that point, from everything I've seen on top of the music, it said this is the life I'm choosing.
Mm,
So I chose that life like around 11 years old. I knew I was going to run the streets. I was going to be in the streets and probably ultimately go to prison. From
mm-hmm.
11, from that choice at 11, by 16, I was in prison.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think that's a good topic that you brought up with the music, because I had this the debate between, does the music influence the culture, or does the culture influence the music? And I think it's a little bit of both, right? You hear
Yeah,
these words and you hear the way that the music is portrayed, and the life that people are living, but then you also know that it's some people rapping about things that they don't experience on a day-to-day basis. It's
exactly.
some rappers that aren't living that life, and so that then influences a whole nother group of people to repeat a cycle. So with all the things that you have were into at that time, what ultimately, if you care to share, because I think it's always like sharing our stories, I think is a huge way to help people either learn from that or prevent a story. So what got you in prison, and what would you have done different, or what would you tell to a listener who's sitting here in your shoes, way back at 16 years old?
Well, I went to prison at 16 for homicide. Um, I looked at it from the when I caught that case at 16 years old. I really didn't know the ramifications of what I was doing because I just thought this is how life supposed to look. Somebody disrespect you or cross you in some type of way, and that's how you handle it because that's what I see, that's what I hear, that's what I around me. So if I was to look back at that 16-year-old, if I was able to talk to somebody that's in that situation, as far as their parents, because I believe it's more or less come to the parent, right? I believe
Hmm.
images that we show our children, the things that we let our children listen to and digest is very important because that stuff you might say, well, I can teach my kid not to follow that or not to stay that path, but if you exposing them to certain things, you don't know what they might like. You don't know what their interest is. You expose them to be a lawyer, they may want to be a lawyer, but say you've never seen anybody but criminals or people that's not doing the things they supposed to do or living like this clean life, so to speak, clean life. But and all you see is poor or struggle, drug addiction, alcohol addiction. Then the images don't help, you
Hmm.
know.
Definitely. I think it's so important to be exposed to the things that you want to see. Like you can't be it unless you see it. You can't achieve it unless there's a something tangible that is there for you to grasp. And like I think about when I was coming out of high school and I had the opportunity to go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford. I had opportunities to go to those schools, but it was like the last thing that I wanted to do, because I knew, for me and my situation and my family, being big brother to all my siblings, where there was no dad present. We have different
Right.
dads, but there was no dad present. And for me to go out and be, again, kind of like you were, this mythical creature out there that's doing some things that I don't really know, but like they're out there, look up to them, but where are they and how do I really
Mhm.
know? So I feel like it's so important to have tangible examples that you can see. And like you said, like if all you're seeing is the gang members, the drug dealers, the pimps, um it no matter how many people are in your ear talking about go this route, I see this and I know how to do that. I think one of the
Right.
biggest hurdles in accomplishing goals is just the uncertainty of what's on the other side, right? You don't know what step 1, 2, 3, and 4 are, so how you gonna get to step 5? But you saw the example on how to do X, Y, and Z and get to a
Hmm.
situation. And so no, I think that's a great example, and I know somebody's listening is gonna really take a lot from that. Um, in embracing vulnerability, I know it's somebody listening saying, I don't think a person in a certain environment or surrounded by certain people can do that and be safe. Right. I think about prison. I've never been to prison, but I'm thinking being vulnerable in prison may end up in a bad situation for you. So how
Sure.
did prison affect you in terms of embracing vulnerability, or were you completely shut off to emotions, to showing a quote unquote softer side? I want to debunk that, and but showing that side of you. Were you did it affect you at all, or were you able to express yourself that way?
I think yeah, that's a great question because I went to prison so young. So once I got to prison, I understand when you go in as a juvenile and you at a adult prison, you basically isolated until you turn 18 years old. Okay, so from 18 years old, I was thrust into this situation around grown men, a situation I'd never been. I had never done like juvenile time or things like that. So, yeah, you don't get a chance to be a kid for one. You don't get a chance to be vulnerable and be able to show your emotions and express your emotions. I was telling somebody the other day, like, as I was growing up, when I became an adult, I had been by myself or sleeping by myself in prison for so long. When I came home and I started dealing with females, I had no emotions to that
Mm,
because I've never been able to grow until somebody that was around females that was able to be loved by a female or vice versa, give love. So I
mhm.
was always around men. You have to be hard and you have to act a certain kind of way. So being so-called soft or vulnerable is what we speaking on. It's impossible. I couldn't do it.
Right. Yeah. And I think, man, that's something that I don't know if many people can even fathom that experience, right? So how remind me, how long were you in prison?
So from 16 to 23 years old, I received a 15-year sentence for second degree murder, and I did 7 years and made parole.
Okay, so 7 years of very formative years of development, right? In
Yes.
social, like socially, with just not just women, but humans in general.
Hmm.
And during all that time, you are learning that vulnerability isn't the right way, and like you just gotta hold that emotion in and hold all of that to your chest, and then getting out. Like we have a lot of men who didn't experience any time in prison who don't know how to properly express their emotions and be intimate with women or be emotional with women, or do that. Do you think that's a product of society and what we're taught as men? Do you think that is a product of being a black man? What do you think attributes to that feeling where we can't share our emotions and be vulnerable?
Well, I feel like it's a most definitely a thing, a men thing. But I think if to dig deeper for the black man, I believe that we don't have the platform or the openness to be vulnerable to our families and to our friends and the people that know us because it's like get the job done, suck it up.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear your excuses, and for so long they tell black people, black men, that we make excuses. We make excuses why we don't get ahead. We make excuses why we're not good fathers. Or we whatever the narrative is. They say we make excuses. So in tune, we have to eat it up and get the job done. We don't have that that uh that outlet to say this is what I'm going through. uh, stress, depression, or it just we just can't. It's hard for us to express that to the people that's around us because they don't want to hear excuses from us because it's the stigma of that we make excuses as a race of people.
Hmm. As a father, are you trying to combat that mentality by showing a different example to your children? And you could say no. I mean, I understand
For
that as
sure.
well. But what are you how are you dealing with that same thing with your children?
Okay, so far as my son go, for a long time since he's my oldest child, for a long time I put a lot of pressure on him to be not go down the same road I did, to stay focused and stay strong. And again, nobody wants to hear excuses. See, that was my big thing to him. The same thing that was told thrust upon me. So as time went on and he has some struggles in life, it's been difficult for him to deal with it because nobody wants to hear your excuses.
Hmm.
As my daughter has grown up, it's of course it's been as I learn more, as I become more understanding and more vulnerable myself, I'm able to be more loving and open to them and whatever they may go through. But as for my son, I basically taught him the same thing that was been taught to most of us.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. And especially a dad teaching a son, that especially being the oldest, like you're trying to shape him into the strongest, most resilient person that you want him to be. And again, like it helped you get to where you were and get to all the adversity that you've been through. And so it must work. It gotta work. But then I think it might be a little shift when you have a daughter.
Right.
You got someone who, I guess from a societal standpoint, is it's more accepting of women to embrace vulnerability, to be
hmm
emotional. And so I think that may have played a factor in that. Do you think?
I most definitely think it played a factor, but I also grew a lot. Also,
Mm,
started to understand life a little bit more as I got older, and understand that it's okay to feel pain. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to express your feelings. So, I mean, I have a daughter that plays sports, and she sometimes gets a little whiny or whatever, and I had to catch myself to be like, I want to say, suck it up. Nobody wants to hear that, but in the same breath, I understand.
yep.
I understand that it could be tough.
Yep.
You lost. You didn't play well, or what? It might just not be having a great day.
Definitely. Where did that shift in mindset come from? You said you grew. Where did that growth come from? Was it reading? Was it being around different people? Where did that mindset shift come from?
Well, I had got a professor from. I went to school in Western Kentucky as I got older, and I had a professor that I took criminology. I took criminology just to learn myself. I had been to prison 3 times, and I wanted to know why was I a criminal. So this is the reason I took this course. Um, but the professor um, taught me so much about um, just looking inside myself, and it's okay to be who I am. For so long, like you said, I was a mythical creature. I was this character of myself. I wasn't really portraying the person that I feel like I was because I feel like nobody would understand that person, especially where I came from. Nobody would, like that person. So for me, I created this character to make me get through life. But once I learned to understand myself. I mean, to be okay with being myself and being my true self. Then I was able to understand other people's vulnerability and
Mm,
why they may have issues and pains and it's okay to have them. And so once reading and my professor has opened my eyes to a whole nother world that I wasn't even exposed to.
wow, that's beautiful. Do you remember that professor's name? If you want to give him a shout out.
Yeah, Kay King. Her name is Kay King. She's retired now, but she's still actually a mentor of mine right now. And it
Wow,
might seem strange. She's a white woman, right? She's a white woman.
wow.
And people would from look at me and think, well, how did you hook up with this white woman? Well, Kendrick. kindred spirits, connected, and she's a beautiful person, and I still lean on her to this day.
That's beautiful. And you spoke so poignantly on the power of authenticity, right? Knowing who you are, getting to the core of who you are in order to understand others. And I think when I think about the reason I started a podcast about embracing vulnerability, I think vulnerability is so crucial in our ability to connect with other people, our ability to heal
Hmm.
ourselves, and tell stories that bring people together and debunk all the stereotypes and the things that people think about people just by looking at them. And so
Right.
you spoke right to it, just the authenticity of finding out who you are so that you can share that with the world and then connect with somebody who probably comes from a totally different background and has a whole different life experience than you to get to where you at. So that's a beautiful story, and I'm so grateful that you had that opportunity to meet her and continue to be in involved in her life and her and yours. And so that's amazing. So I don't know when this podcast will be released, but we're coming up on a important election here in Nashville,
Hmm.
and we're voting on mayor, council people, and some other important things. As a former felon, or how would you want that to be described? Because I'm actually trying to learn. Like, is it former felon or
Well, I would like to be a former felon, but unfortunately, it never leaves.
okay?
Regardless if I'm on parole or probation or whatever, it never goes away. I could never carry a gun. Um, I could never, just say if I couldn't even protect my home with a weapon.
Mm,
So I'll
wow.
always be a felon until I die under the under the law, I guess.
Okay. So under current rules, like your Second Amendment rights are stripped away. Don't have those rights.
Yeah,
At a point where your voting rights taken away from you.
they were. I just got them back after I was released from parole.
Okay.
Uh,
That's amazing because I don't think many people, and I don't think I knew that that was a possibility. What was that process like of going from getting, being released from parole and then getting those reinstated? Did you have to be
well,
proactive
yeah,
in that?
I did. So if I don't, if so it's a form that you fill out, and the form says it asks you all these questions about your background and things like that, and when did your parole end? And once that becomes, then you mail it in, and then they'll send you a form back saying that you was approved. But you have to be off parole or probation, um, not a specific length of time, just only you just have to be off. You can't be under any type of supervision.
Okay. And I just did a quick search. And if you, in Tennessee at least, restoration of voting rights, if you search that on Google, I found the form that he's referring to. So if you are, if you have felony convictions and you want to start voting and you're not on probation anymore, go to Google, search restoration of voting rights, and get your voting rights back. Because and I think in a world in the country that promotes so much of the rights and the freedoms that we have, a decision or a choice or whatever you want to make it from your past should not stick with you for the rest of your life. And in a democracy, I feel like you should have your rights to vote, to protect yourself, to do all of those things. And hopefully, as legislation continues to grow and change, those other rights that have been stripped away from you are reinstated as well. So thank you for that. 'Cause I think that's a good resource because I didn't know that and I appreciate that. What's up, Vulnerability Muscle fam? We've got an amazing sponsor to talk about today. And it's a product that has truly made a difference in my life. Call Me Go. Now, I only bring products that I believe in, and this is one that has been a game changer for me. Whenever I feel stressed, whenever I feel like things are just piling up and the anxiety is really cranking up, I turn to my Calm Me Go device. This is it right here. This thing is literally a game changer, and I was skeptical about it at first, but what makes this thing stand out? It combines three scientifically proven methods to reducing anxiety. First, there's this grounding technique, multiple, sensory device. First, there's First, there is a grounding technique. multi-sensory stimulation that really helps you stay present. So you have the feel of it. There's a vibration factor. There's lights. There's also smell. Then there's that scented element, tapping into the power of aromatherapy. But here's the kicker, and what really sets Calm and Go apart is personalized breathing regulation. It's like having your own breathing coach in your pocket, in your hand. And so I use this when I'm gearing up for podcasts, when I'm starting my day, when I'm calming down and chilling out at the end of my day. It has been an absolute game changer. I love Calm and Go because it's not a one size fit all solution. It's tailored to me, my body, my unique stress triggers. Now, I want you to experience the calm that Calm and Go can bring to your life. Head over to calmandgo.com and use the code REGGIE444 at checkout for a fantastic $30 off. Trust me, this is an investment in your well being that you won't regret. Visit calmigo.com, use the code REGGIE444 at checkout, and let Calmigo help you find calm in the storm. One thing that, kind of shifting gears a little bit, one thing that we share as a family is the loss of your brother. And
Yeah.
your younger brother was, again, it's something about y'all too. Just larger than life type of characters and people that just are just beloved by so many people. Talk about your relationship with your brother. If you want to name him, you can name him. And then kind of how his life transition or how his life continued and grew and the things that he was doing and then ultimately the feelings that you got from his passing.
Man, that's a powerful question. His name is Gordon, so we call him G, Baby G. Gordon is my family's official last name, my granddaddy's last name. That's where you get the name Gordon. Um, Man, the passing of my brother, my one and only brother, one and only sibling, it's been tough. You know, it's been tough. It's been coming up on 15 years now in November, and I remember getting a call vividly from when it happened, and it was just a real crazy situation. I like had a feeling he was dead before I got there.
Mm,
Like it was like something inside me released, So it's been tough, but in the same breath, it also changed my direction of my life. Um, my brother has two children, and when he died, everybody know me in the streets as a gangster, and I would do this and do that, only because I had been to prison for murder. So now I'm this big killer, right? But I only killed one
mhm,
person. So I mean, not
mhm,
saying only like try to belittle it, because I'm pretty sure that man's family is hurting in some shape, form, or fashion. So I don't want to belittle it, but people may feel like I'm just this killer walking the streets,
right.
and so I did want to revenge my brother's death. Like I really wanted to revenge my brother's death, and my mother had a conversation with me when she knew I was very upset, like a day after it happened, and she was like, "What's gonna happen to your children? What's gonna happen to his children? What's gonna happen to me
Mm,
with one child dead and one in prison for the rest of your life?"
mm,
So, man, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was crying. I was upset because I wanted to avenge my brother's death. It's no way a person like me could let something like that happen, and it just they get a pass for that. So, but that conversation with my mother changed my life, man. Um, from that point on, I started searching for my purpose, because my brother was bigger than life. They say the good die young, right? And I believe he was one of those people. He left his mark here, uh, and it gave me, even though I'm his big brother, it's like I took on his spirit. And for me to have to be responsible for that is very important to me, because I refuse to let our legacy be my brother was gunned down in the street and I've been in and out of prison all my life.
right.
They can't be our story.
Right.
So it had to be a shift, and that's the number one. So his passing has changed my life tremendously.
Wow. Wow. I'm emotional just because hearing it from your perspective, which I don't think I've ever heard from, is powerful. I was 17 years old when it happened, and I think I was in the same mindset as a lot of the people thinking like, I know cuz gon' retaliate. I know cuz gonna do something about it because again, I didn't know much about your life and you and all of that.
Hmm.
And honestly, deep down inside, I wanted something to happen because it just felt so it felt I felt empty. Like that was I had a couple friends die before that, but nobody in the family that was just like, oh man, this hit. And so like I really I to get what I probably thought would have been peace, I wanted to see retaliation. I wanted to see something happen from it.
Hmm.
But honestly, as we grow and mature, I know that wouldn't have brought more peace because eye for eye just leaves everybody blind, right? And who
For
knows? Like
sure.
when shout out to Auntie Gwen, like your mama when she sat down and told you that, like it could have not just been like what happens to me as someone who loses both of her sons. It could have been like, what if they come back, and what if it's just this ping pong
Hmm.
back and forth, right? So you
Right.
never know. And I think that's one of the reasons why I applaud you so much because your maturity and your growth to get to a place of knowing that that's not the way to retaliate, and to channel Gordon's spirit as you continue to do all the things that you do to uplift the community, uplift the people around you is very inspiring. So thank you for that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Um let's talk let's now shift to what you are up to today because you're involved in a lot of different things, entrepreneur, investor, you're a community activist, you do a lot of different things. Speak to what that passion, that purpose, and all the things that you found from whether it was school, whether it was your brother's loss. Like what have you channeled that into? What are you up to today?
Okay, so yeah, I gotta. I mean, my purpose. I feel like, and my passion is. I understand where a lot of us are as a culture, as a community. I understand, and I think a lot of times people don't understand because if you make it out, it's hard to reach back. It's hard if you some kind of way can get out. It's hard to just even want to go around it. You know what I'm saying? But I also understand a lot of people are just not privy to information or being around certain kind of people. Um, I spoke on Dr. Kate, but also another guy that's very instrumental in my growth as an adult is this guy named Tom. Uh, and I think by me being exposed to these people and others, um, has given me a shift to say, hey, yeah, you got the information. Yeah, you own a couple of properties and your businesses are doing well. But what about everybody else that don't have the information? And so I want to make sure that with every breath of me that I make sure that many people I can have the information because at the end of the day, it starts with a shift of how you think.
Hmm.
If I never shifted the way I think, I still been doing the same things. And by me shifting the way I think, I wouldn't have been open to Dr. Kate. I wouldn't have been open to Tom. I wouldn't have been open to reading some of the stuff that I read. Like some of the stuff that I read, people be like, you know. But for me, reading has opened my world so much. So my mission is just to literally just get that message out. Stop thinking the way we was raised. I hate to say this, the way we were raised was wrong. The stuff that we been taught was wrong. It just wasn't correct. And and we live by that, and we keep on passing down generational uh, curses or generational behaviors time and time and time again, and nobody stopped to say that stuff didn't work for the last 10 generations. You know, we we actually going down the same path and worse as time goes on because I was reading something the other day, man, it just blew my mind. the average net income of a African American is 14,000.
Mm.
I said fourteen
Wow.
thousand. Like, it just amazes me that we so far behind,
Right.
and those numbers are less than from 1960.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get here and making less money than we were making in 1960?
Yeah.
Only 65 or 70 years removed from slavery. Like, so it just for me, man. I just want people to just think differently. Uh, Stop thinking that 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 not putting money to the side and everything is a party.
Mm-hmm.
I think we celebrate nothing.
Mm.
And I hate to be a judge of people, but I just feel like we celebrate nothing a lot instead of taking care of business.
Wow. Wow. We celebrate that's I think there's a lot to that. When I think about some of the sociology classes that I took in class or in college, thinking about people who are so oppressed, people are so disenfranchised to a point where they feel that they have to have something to look forward to. And I think to
Hmm.
what you just said, and I used to see this. I sit back and I didn't drink for a long time. I don't drink now. I'm coming up on a year, no alcohol, and it's like you see the world a little bit differently when you just sit back and watch and just observe.
Yeah.
And you see this like this cycle of Monday I'm dreading going to work, and then I go through this the week, but then I gotta have something to look forward to. That's Friday, that's Saturday to go out and have a good time, and then now I'm back into it, the cycle. And I think for people who whether no matter where they are, that is a cycle that continues because you feel so hopeless in the everyday life because you can't.
Hmm.
So I think the mindset and the attitudes are so much bigger than the individual level, day-to-day levels of, like you said, why how do we digress from the 60s to now? Like, why are we worse off, and why are our mindsets worse off? And I think that is a much larger issue than just the
For sure.
individual level. What So you mentioned some of the things that you were reading or currently reading. What are some of those, like some of those books or some of those things? Because there's millions of books that you can go pick up, right? Perseverance through Severe
Hmm.
Dysfunction by Reggie D. Ford is a great one if you
For
need something
sure.
to read. But what like if you wanted to recommend a couple books that really started that mindset shift for you.
Well, I have one that I love, and I recommend anybody reading. That's Seat of the Soul. Um, I don't have. I think his name Gary Zukav. Gary Zukav.
Okay.
Seat of the Soul. Love the book. I think it will help you look inside yourself. I think you would start to understand why you think the way you think. I think you would start to have empathy towards others, and understand that people are in their situation. Everybody's situation is unique, uh, and just to be like more open and loving. Um, and that's just like your spiritual self, your mind shift, set shift, those things. And then another book that I love for is coming to dealing with finances or just the way you think about finances, because it's not necessarily talking about money per se. It's the psychology of money.
Mm,
I love that book, Psychology of Money, because it talks about how most people only save unless they have a reason to. Say like, okay, I want to take a vacation, so I start putting to the side. Or I want to buy a car, so I start putting to the side. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to put to the side without any goal in mind, just to give myself some kind of
yep.
security. And I think most people don't think about it in a security sense. They more or less think about it in a goal sense. So psychology of money is two great. I mean, psychology of money and seed of the soul are two of my favorite books that I would recommend to anyone.
I love it. I love it. I haven't read Seat of the Soul, but I'm gonna definitely check that out. So appreciate that. You have a brand, mindset versus state of mind. Where did that phrase come from?
Hmm.
What's the motivation behind that, and what do you hope to accomplish with that?
Okay, so my brand, it's a movement. It's I sell these T-shirts, but it's not less there for fashion. It's more or less for so you can think. But when I was sitting around thinking one day how I could get my message across was uh I'm gonna print up these shirts. I was just gonna wear them for myself, because I want when people see me, this is what I'm representing when we have because it's a conversation starter. That's basically why I started wearing them. And then more people like, man, I need one of those shirts. I need one of those shirts. So I printed up some. So, but mindset versus state of mind was I thought about the times when I was in my state of mind when I thought selling drugs, running the streets, when I thought that was the life. But all I thought, but when I think back on it, I was in my state of mind. I didn't have a set of what I wanted to do. I can think of time where I bought uh, apartment buildings when I was in the streets, or when I bought uh, uh, just dumb stuff. Sometimes. And I always felt like I had a way out. In my mind, I was gonna get out of the streets, but I put the streets in front of everything. I got out of prison at 23 years old, and I started my first business at 24.
What was the business?
Um, it was called the Spot, named it after where I sold drugs out of the Spot. That's the truth. And we sold and we sold food, fish, um, wings, stuff like that. But the business done well, but I was so caught up in the streets that I never went to the business.
Hmm.
Imagine that. I never kept up with what was going on other than to restock it. And and I look back at that, I was in my state of mind. My state of mind told me uh sell dope. That was my state of mind, to sell drugs every day. I had no other plans, no other goals, regardless if I started the business or not. It was never going anywhere because I never invested my time or my mind into
Hmm.
it. But as I grew older and I started reading all these Greek philosophers, right? When I was in college, I got to read. I started reading all these Greek philosophers, and then it got to me to thinking about if I really wanted to do something, I could just put my mind to it and do it. And I think about all the things I had accomplished all my life. Once I said I was gonna do it, I
Hmm.
done it. So now it's like, okay, my mind is opening more and more as I'm reading these books, I'm studying these Greek philosophers. Um, so, and that's how I came up with the mindset versus state of mind, because now I know I can accomplish whatever I want to do once I put it in my mind.
Yeah.
And I can't let my moods, my environment, uh, the people around me affect how I think. That's my state of mind. And I so long let the stuff around me guide me instead of my own thoughts.
Wow.
So that's how I came up with mindset versus
I
state of
love
mind.
it. I love it. That's inspiring. You got me ready to just go crush some stuff. Like, it's powerful. Like your thoughts are so powerful. Because like if you write down well, first to write it down, you have to think it, right? If I say I want to make $1 million,
Right.
I thought I want to make $1 million. I wrote it down. I want to make $1 million. Now my actions and my everything that I do is going toward that goal. So if I get into a situation where I am not making money, it's like that's not my goal. And I'm just using that as an example,
Right.
but you can apply that to
Yeah, for
anything,
sure.
right? I want to be happy. I want to be peaceful. I want to, start a podcast, right? I'm gonna be honest. Like I've been on a ton of podcasts. I've been interviewed. I speak in front of thousands of people. Starting this podcast is one of the most daunting tasks that I think I've ever had to do, just because I
Hmm.
and it'll get easier over time. I know that, but I don't like talking to a camera. And this is different because I'm talking to you. Like I'm not the influencer
Right.
type that's gonna sit around and open my phone in Walmart and just be like, "Hey y'all, like come on." I'm not that type of person. I'd rather it be towards somebody, or you're just gonna catch a clip of me talking to an audience. And so, but I had this goal because I knew the power of these conversations. I knew the power of just my voice out there in the world and other people's voices and stories in the world. And I wanted that to become a reality, but it started with a thought. Every business that I've ever thought of, or every business I've ever created, started as a thought. And so I think
Hmm.
that's powerful. Let's go back a little bit, because so you have a story that I think, so like you said, like you talked about excuses earlier, and a lot of people will use the excuse that because I have this felony conviction, I can't do X, Y, and Z. Because I have this felony conviction, I can't go to college. I can't vote. I can't start a business. You doing all of those things. You've done all those things. How did you, from that age, starting a spot, and please talk about any other business endeavors you had along the way. But when you got to college, what was that process like? Because I know somebody out there like, I want to go to school because I'm sitting here and it's not getting better. So I might as well spend 4 years, 2 years, however long it is, to get a degree to then change my life. How did you change that? Like what did you do to get to college first?
Well, man, I was already in the ship of changing my life, right? So it just presented itself. Uh, I came up with this thing, right? So anything that I'm afraid of, that means I got to do it
Mm,
because I lived my life in fear for so
mm,
long. You understand? So I lived as a character that I wanted people to see. But once, and I used to put stuff to the side because I was just afraid to do it. I let fear dictate what I done. So once I got that mindset of, if it, because they say, if you're not in fear, then you're not dreaming big enough, right? If your goals don't scare you, then they're not, or your dreams don't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough. So anytime I thought about doing something and it gave me fear, that let me know that I'm on the right track to do it, right? So I never went to school necessarily for a degree. I only went to school to learn more about the person that I was. So that's how that came about. I actually was in prison in this program called Inside Out. It's a unique program, very unique program. Only select few people can get into this program, and it's called Inside Out because the professor and the outside students would come inside the prison, and we would have class with the outside students, just as and they will come in and have class with the inside students. But when I say it's like a small select group of people, like maybe like out of 2,000, 2,500 prisoners, only like 10 could get in, and then once you in, you go from semester to semester to semester, and it may be dang near impossible for somebody else to get
mm-hmm,
in, if because it's that serious. They not gonna let, because a lot of guys play, a lot of people not serious, so they want to make sure this is something you want to do. So that's how I got into school. But uh, it's just for me, far as excuses go, man. I just one of those people that never wanted to think, just wanted to go by that because I seen nobody got it done. Everybody around me, and I don't want this to be like a family bashing session. I love my family wholeheartedly, but this is the reality of what I seen and what was going on. And so the people that I seen was excuse makers. To be honest with you, nobody was doing nothing, you know. And I know my father, but I don't know my father's
mm-hmm.
family. So so with that being said, I always felt differently. I always felt that there was something more out there for me other than this, you know. Um, the drugs and the alcohol or whatever. Even though I indulged in alcohol or whatever, but still, it wasn't to the point where I wanted to be a part of it. And so as I went on, man, I bought my first property in 2008. And the only reason I bought that property because I had a cousin who was buying properties, and I was like, "Cuz, show me how to do it. What do I do?" And he would never
Mm-hmm.
show me. All he would say was, "Save your money, cuz." And I'm like, but that, so the opportunity presented itself for me to buy my first property in 2008. If you know anything about 2008, was a housing crash, and I was able to buy houses here in Nashville for like
Wow.
20,000,
Wow. Phew.
and that literally changed my life, uh, because 10 years later, after buying that house, those houses now they're worth
Mm-hmm.
250, three hundred
Yeah.
thousand. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I went back to prison at 38 years old. But when I came home, the property, like I said, the properties that I owned 2 years later, I came home. The 3 years later, I came home. The properties I owned was worth two and three
Mm-hmm.
hundred thousand. If I didn't have that to fall back on, who knows what I
Right.
would have done? To be
Right.
honest,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just the truth.
So, Kenji, tell the audience a little bit about the things that you're doing now. Like, what are you up to now? With all the things you've been through, things you've learned. What What's your life like now?
Okay, so for right now, man, I'm really heavy invested in real estate. That's like my focus, because I believe real estate um, builds wealth over time, especially if you hold it. But right now, I own multiple multifamily properties, so I have like 20 doors now. So that's one thing I have going. Um, so
Explain
that's
that when you say 20 doors.
so it's like if I got one property that has four doors, one multifamily that has four. I have another one that has two. So it equals up to 20 doors. So when I say 20 doors, it's like each door I get paid for each door that someone rent from me. And I think it's important that people invest in multifamily properties because, especially when you're young, because you can house hack, save your money, and then when you get a little older or whatever, you can move on. But I like multifamily invest. That's something I'm big into. And I own properties Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky. I go into juvenile and I speak to children about young men and women about, you know, way you think is going to determine your outcome. I tell people all the time, the decision you make while you're young is going to be the outcome when you get older. And at the time you think you just living and you just going by day to day life, but the decisions you make will affect you as you get older. Um, and that's for having children, not investing or saving or not learning anything because a lot of people leave high school and stop learning. They go into their career and that's all they do. Um, I'm also a mentor on mindset and finances. I believe if you keep thinking the way you always thought, then you'll never change the way you think about money. And a lot of people say, "Why you always talk about money?" Well, we have bills and we have children and they're gonna have children one day. So it's best abundance is our birthright. I mean, we should have all that we need, but you got to think that way first. If you think lack, you would have lack. You won't have. So that's what I got going on now. Real estate investing, talking to children, hoping I can stop them from going down the paths I went. Somebody can just show them like, hey, it's another way. Somebody come from where they come from. And I seem to have a great impact when I do that because I've been there. I was a gang member. I was a drug dealer. I have been to prison. So when I do talk to these young men and young women, they listen because I'm someone they can relate to instead of somebody who's never been through it coming there and saying, "Hey, do this, do that." They 9 times out of 10 they won't hear them. So, and I also so that's big for me. talking to children, and again, just teaching people about finances and mindset is my thing. I have life insurance for my daughter. And we could talk about that as well. Another thing as a felon that holds you back is you can't get large life insurance policies on yourself. To secure your family when your time do come. And I think that's kind of bad too, because how long do I supposed to I go to straight and narrows? Uh, it's been over 10 years now,
Hmm.
and I still don't qualify for a nice size life insurance policy. I can get a policy to bury me, but it don't leave my family in a better
Hmm.
situation. You know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I mean, one, your story and who you are is just such a testament to how we're so complex as people. Like you're not this gangster murderer. You're not this just like one box of a person. You are so many different things. You're
Hmm.
so inquisitive. You're studying Greek philosophers. You are a real estate investor. You're a father. You're all these different things in one. And so it's very easy in the world to look at a person, look at one thing that they've done and identify them with that for the rest of their lives. And I think that's
Hmm.
something that, someone who has a felony conviction, that is what our government and a lot of our laws do. It looks at you and says, because of
Hmm.
a decision, a mistake, a choice you made at some point in your life, you are always going to have that tag on you. And I think that's so unfair because you are clearly a testament to what your life can become with willpower. Sheer, like, you definitely dedicated a lot of your energy and effort to changing your life. But it didn't come alone. It came with influences from other people. It came with uh, a
Sure.
lot of tragedy, a lot of loss. It came with a lot of different things. And so
Yeah.
your entire story is just a testament to multiple truths can exist at one time. Like, I can look at you and I can see all the great things. I can know that there are some bad things, and that's just the reality of being human. I applaud you for all of that. I got a couple questions, a little quick rapid response that I
Okay.
want to ask you really quick, and so just bear with me as I pull those up. But um, the first one that and answer these as honestly, and don't worry about right or wrong or anything like that. What comes to mind when you hear the word vulnerability?
To be honest, soft.
Soft. If you could have a conversation with anyone, living or dead, who would it be?
Most definitely my brother.
Mm, powerful. What is one of your favorite childhood memories?
Um, my one of my favorite childhood memories is going to my grandmother's house on Easter. To it may sound strange, but just going there and family is all together and everybody dressed up nice. So one of my favorite childhood memories is me, my mom, and my brother going to my grandmother's house on Easter.
Mm. What is a book or movie that everyone should read or watch?
I spoke on it earlier, Seed of the Soul. I think that's a staple. I think everyone living should read that book.
What is one thing you do to relax when you're feeling stressed?
Exercise. I like to keep an
Excellent.
exercise regimen. I exercise every day, if it's weights or running or walking or calisthenics, whatever. It kind of keeps me mellow and keeps me because I still go through things day to day.
Absolutely. And then last, what is the number one podcast you've ever experienced?
Come on, man, embracing vulnerability. That goes without being said.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Uh Give the audience a couple of places how they can reach out to you, where they can connect with you, if they want to, message you or anything like that.
Um, you can catch me on Instagram, TNG State of Mind. You can catch me on Facebook at Kenneth Garrett, Twitter, TNG State of Mind, and that's my platforms. You can reach out to me, send me messages. I post a lot of positive messages every day. Give you things to think about. So yeah, you can always reach out to me that way.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to include those in the show notes of this podcast. If you want to follow me, Reggie D Ford on all platforms, will also be the you can follow the podcast there. Kenji, again, this has been such an honor for me to be able to interview you because and I'm gonna embrace vulnerability a little bit right here because I don't think I've ever told you this. You know, my relationship with my father is very complicated. I actually don't have a relationship with him right now. And I see a lot of him and you and him, and a lot of the similarities from the past, and but the difference is where you've taken your life and the way that you've chosen to respond, and your ability to respond the way that you have is very impactful to me. And so I just really appreciate that because as a cousin, I see you as a father figure of sorts, and it means the absolute world to see all the things that you are doing. um with all the things that you could be doing and all the places that you can be, you're here with me, embracing vulnerability.
I appreciate you, cousin.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another powerful episode of Vulnerability Muscle. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that resonate with you. If you're enjoying this journey of self discovery and empowerment, there are a few ways you can support the podcast. First, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. If you've been moved by our conversations and the mission of redefining vulnerability, please consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only motivates us, but also helps others discover the podcast. Share your thoughts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. And don't forget to spread the word. Follow us on Instagram at Vulnerability Muscle for updates, and you can connect with me personally at Reggie D Ford on all platforms. Visit vulnerabilitymuscle.com for additional resources and upcoming episodes. And remember, embracing vulnerability is strength. Thanks for being a part of the journey. Until next time, stay empowered, stay vulnerable, and keep flexing that vulnerability muscle.